Hello and welcome to the next segment of the Festival of the Unexplained. Apologise to those that already watched me earlier. You've got to put up with me again. Earlier I was interviewing Chris McKinnell from the Warren Foundation, discussing his paranormal investigations and the great foundation and the work that he does. And in this segment I will be interviewing Kenney, a cryptopunkologist, and you'll get the meaning of that when you see his hairstyle, which is quite cool. It's to match my sideburns, I think. So hopefully this should be good. It is a little different to the paranormal in terms of ghosts and spirits and mediums, but maybe there is a correlation between that and cryptozoological creatures. Maybe we'll talk about that. So it is a bit different, but it's something I'm interested in, and I know a lot of people that are watching this will be interested in it as well. Don't forget, just slightly off topic, I am selling my book throughout this weekend, An Introduction to Paranormal Investigation, and any book that I sell, I will be giving 50% to the charity. You've just got to PM me, so just drop me a private message, Kieran Woodhouse, on Facebook, and or go through Karen or Jolene or anyone, and I'll get you the book, and 50% can go towards the charity. So don't forget that. And yeah, so the whole thing is for the campaign against living miserably. A lot of people are at the moment. So there'll be a Just Giving page linked, no doubt, to this. Please just go to there and give charitably, because a lot of people are in dire situations at the moment, and people that normally wouldn't be as well. And that must be difficult to deal with. So we're going to pull in Kenney now. I know he's madly sharing everything to Facebook and sharing it around, but let's just pull Kenney into the stream. Hiya, Kenney.
Hey, how you doing, my friend?
Very good yourself?
I'm great, fantastic. Happy to be here and talking with you, meeting you, and being part of this. This great cause. This is out of everything that I'm going to be a part of in 2021. I'm going to say that this is probably going to be the most important. And it was more. It was more of an honor to be able to step in and be a part of this, especially after with the holidays, a lot of people get kind of down, and then you add COVID on top of it with nothing to do, and they just get out of the holidays and get to see their families. And this is a really, really tough time of year without COVID. And now that it's in place, it's I think prevention and awareness is more needed now than any time.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said that better myself. So you're coming on as a cryptopunkologist, and it's plain to see why. You kind of carry that image, which is cool. I guess I'd be classed as a bit of a skinhead or something. I'd probably be. But yeah, so you're coming as a cryptopunkologist, so that kind of sets you aside to just being a boring old cryptozoologist, I guess.
Yeah. To see, I work in sales and marketing, in my day job, and me and the founder of the group that I'm with, the New York Bigfoot Society, he would always talk about my hair, this and that, and then we kind of came up with hey, the crypto punk, and we just started talking about it. It just kind of stuck, and it's kind of like taking both two passions that I have. I love creatures and legends. It's just to me it's just takes my mind away from everything that's going on. But I'm also a musician. I've kind of retired the stage. I don't really play on stage anymore, but I played in a bunch of punk bands, hardcore bands. And so it's pretty much just taking, again, two of my passions and just kind of combining them together. Being a musician and just loving legend and lore. And it just kind of fit. It kind of went. And so we kind of rolled with it. And it's just strange though, too, because, if you go on Google and you punch in the cryptopunkologist, my face now pops up. So it's trademark. It's there's nothing I can do about it, even if I didn't want to do it anymore. So that's how it all came about. And just combining the two passions together, and just running with it and enjoying it, because music's the same way, as legend, it kind of takes you somewhere else, it takes your mind somewhere. And those are two major therapies for me that keep me kind of sane. For some people it's writing, which is another passion of mine, which obviously has been combined in with it. So, yeah, just legend and lore writing and music for me is just like a major therapy, and it keeps me on the straight, and it just worked. It was one of those things that just kind of came together and worked.
Yeah, and it's and clearly it does. Like I say, putting that into Google and your face pops up. It's a good marketing drive, really.
It is.
So you mentioned there about how you write. That kind of helps you kind of keep on the straight and narrow. And you have a book, Folklore Frankensteins.
Yes.
That's a fascinating title, because people don't often compare these cryptid kind of monster type creatures to Frankenstein.
Right.
And the more you dig into these kind of these theories and the mysteries and the sightings, and you hear about how some of these monsters do seem like a mishmash of other creatures, like the chupacabra, which is half kind of like hyena,
Right.
half dog type thing. So to use the term Frankenstein, I think is great. In that book, do you talk about real kind of sightings? Do you investigate real life sightings? And if so, obviously that's right. Do you have any firm favourites that really stick out in your mind in terms of monsters that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because everybody kind of sees me as like a Bigfoot guy, primarily because of the group that I'm with is called the New York Bigfoot Society. But I'm originally from northern Vermont, and I grew up on Lake Champlain with the sea creature Champ. I've never gotten an opportunity to actually see Champ, but in reality, my favorite cryptid out of all of them would definitely be Champ. I mean, from a young age, to think that there was a sea monster like in that lake and to be standing in that lake. I mean, I remember standing in that lake at times just being like, is it going to be today? Am I going to see it today? And also times when I'm standing there, I'm like, okay, is this the day I get eaten? Is this the day that I get pulled under and nobody ever sees me again? My mom's gonna cry, all this stuff. So I get out of the water because I was so young. But to this day, I still haven't seen Champ. I know people that have witnessed, on what they believe to be Champ. I've got a friend, Katie, who studies Champ. She does that full time. She actually had a law enacted on the New York border of Lake Champlain that it's illegal to hurt or hunt or anything like you can go out and look, but it's protecting it as a species. So it was pretty cool.
That's cool. Considering the species hasn't been proven, I guess. I mean, the equivalent to that for everyone watching that's in the UK would be the Loch Ness Monster. I guess would be the same kind of thing.
Yes.
And again, I watched a documentary on this not long ago, and there's a man who lives there now for 20 plus years in a little caravan, and he hasn't seen it. In 20 years, he hasn't seen the Loch Ness Monster. Is that something that frustrates people like you? You kind of write about it, you talk about it, it's a passion of yours. And the same with people that deal with ghosts and things like that, but most people have seen a ghost that talk about it. But I've spoken to people that are in your field of research and they've never seen one. Does that make it difficult to keep the passion up?
No, not at all, because I know individuals who are very passionate, and then I know individuals who are very logical about the search, and there's a lot of people that are very credible that have actually witnessed, and that's kind of what keeps me going. It's like, okay, well, when is it going to be my turn? For me, like, I don't want to believe, like, I just want to know. It's because for me, excuse me, anytime I want to believe in something, I find I tend to put too much into it, and then go overboard. So I just want to know. I know the founder of the group that I'm with has seen an actual Sasquatch, and he's the first guy that's going to talk somebody out of what they saw. And that's one of the reasons I joined that group too, because he just doesn't jump on board on anything. For him to actually say, hey, you know what, I saw something, it's legitimate. Something's real there. And there's lots of law enforcement, that have claimed to witnessed, as well as park rangers, forest rangers, and different individuals like that. And then you have the people that weren't looking. weren't
Yeah.
looking at all, didn't believe. And those, to me, are the real credible individuals, because they weren't looking. They didn't have an agenda. They didn't have anything. And those are the claims that I love. I love to hear those, because you don't get as much detail, which I like, because, you know, if you see something for a few seconds, you shouldn't have all this detail. So you know, and they're very unsure about what they saw, which to me, again, makes it even more of a credible encounter, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I also think that the law enforcement type people, you know, these people that are in quite high positions of authority, it's the same with UFOs and pilots. That
Yeah.
people like that have a lot to lose in terms of credibility. You know, they're putting a lot on the line when they come out and say that they've seen a UFO, or that they've seen a Bigfoot, or they've seen, you know, a sea monster. So why would they lie about that? You know, they have a lot to lose, some of these people. So I'm often inclined to believe their stories a little bit more than the person that, you know, the boy who cried wolf kind of person who talks about it all the time, and they just happen to see one, and you think, well, did you, or is that just what you wanted to see? Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've come across stuff like that where, you know, I had this one individual that reached out to me, and they're like, "Hey, you know, I saw a Bigfoot. I know it was a Bigfoot." I'm like, "Are you 100% sure? You know, it was far away, this and that. Could it have been something else? Could it, you know?" "No, 100%, 100%. It was a Bigfoot. I could tell it was a Bigfoot." You know, I'm like, "All right." You know, I'm like, "Well, where did you see it?" And they kind of like gave me the county that it was in, and, you know, the area. And I'm like, "Wow." You know, I kind of did them a little dirty. I said, "Wow." I said, "Really?" I said, "I've never heard of any Bigfoots out of there. I've only heard of, like, you know, a lot of dogman encounters." And he said, "Well, you know what? Maybe it could have been a dogman. Maybe it could have been." And I'm like, "All right, see, and that's my point. You don't 100% know." And I always say it like this. I mean, I've been in the mall before with, you know, a climate controlled environment, lights everywhere, you can see, and oh man, there's that kid I went to high school with, I don't know, 50 feet from me. I'm walking over to say hi to him. I get over there and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's not him.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like, now consider a 3-second sighting 100 yards away in the woods with the trees. But yet, you know, how many times has somebody thought that they saw somebody that they knew in a
Yeah.
climate controlled environment with lighting, and it turned out not to be them?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we always have to take that into consideration. And you know, I'm not saying anybody that's had, you know, everybody's, you know, encounters have been BS, but we always have to take that into consideration. Like our group, we won't post anything, we won't talk about anything unless we can't understand it and come up with a logical reason for it. If we can come up with a logical reason, this makes sense why this is it, then we throw it out. But again, if we can't, and we're just completely stumped, you know, then we'll roll with it. And the founder of our group, he's also his education is in animal behavior. Like, he ran a humane society,
Right.
he was a veterinarian, all this and that. So he just like knows everything about animals. He knows what, you know, somebody's like, "Wow, you hear that? That's a Bigfoot scream." He's like, "No, that's a barred owl." You know, it's like he knows, you know. So if he is stumped, then we've got something.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you've touched on something good there. That I mean, it's great that, you know, I guess through the past, I don't know, 5 years or so, there's really been an explosion of TV programs surrounding like Bigfoot and things like that, and that can only be good in terms of getting people interested in the subject, and, you know, getting people out there and researching themselves. But it is having that years and years of experience that allows you to know the difference. And I wonder how many sightings do you get, like, not almost time wasters, but people come to you with what they think is evidence, and because in their naivety they see it as being, you know, a cryptid, and you easily debunk it. Do you get a high level of those?
We do, without a doubt. You know, I mean, it's tough, because when, say it's just like a picture with like a red circle around it or something like that, I mean, we don't know what we're looking at, you know. And you know, we always look at it like this: if there's something that's standing there that's 8 feet tall, okay, that is huge, it's growling, whatever, you really don't need a red circle to put around it, because we should be able to see it. But again, that's not saying that's not what's in the picture. But yeah, we get a lot of them where we just can't see anything. You know, we're like, "We apologize, but we don't see what you're seeing." And keep at it, keep doing what you're doing. You know, we're not saying that what you're saying is there isn't there. We're just saying we don't personally see it. And there's that term, for people, they can look at pictures and then find images, and then when you zoom things in, the pixels kind of mix up a little bit too, and the contrast, and then things can kind of look like faces, this and that, and
pareidolia.
Pareidolia, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I know that happens. And I mean, I can do it myself. And but again, my whole thing is, if I don't see it, then in my opinion, if it's a flesh and blood type of creature, which again, I'm 95% flesh and blood, I don't need to try to find it in the picture. Yeah. It should be there. I mean, a lot of people say, they could be paranormal because they just kind of disappear. Well, I mean, I've been in the woods and I've seen a deer disappear in front of me. They blend in, and if these animals, are the masters of their territory, yeah, I mean, they're gonna know how to hide. They're gonna know how to do what they do. I'm not saying that they can't be paranormal. I'm not saying that they can't be extraterrestrial. I'm just saying, like, I'm 95% on the flesh and blood side, which very well could still be extraterrestrial. So I don't know. I personally don't have like a grasp. And I'm glad I don't have a grasp, because if I have too much of a grasp, then I'm going to eventually start missing stuff and send myself down the wrong road. So I kind of like to stay back, kind of think about what's going on, what's happening, and just kind of stay open enough where I can talk to anybody, but at the same time, be closed enough where, I can really think about what I'm doing and what I'm seeing, and not be influenced by, say, somebody that's popular because of this or that, kind of stay in my own lane, if you will.
Yeah. And you mentioned about, kind of deciphering photographs. If you have to draw a big red circle around it, then it's probably not there. One of the main questions I always have for anybody that I talk to really within your field is, why do all photos, not all, but most photos or video evidence of cryptids look like they've been filmed on a potato? Yeah. The quality of them is always shaky, it's blurry, it's miles away. What is that all about? What is there a reason for that?
It's like a similar question along the same line, and I'll answer yours by bringing this other question up. A lot of people say, well, how come, like on a trail cam, it's blurry, because it's tied tightly to a tree, and there should be no shaking. Well, one of the things, and again, I'm going to say theory, and theories for some people is a dirty word. It's a bad word. It's like the F word, in this type of field, because when you say theory, you're saying that something could be wrong, that somebody might believe. But for me, I'm not afraid to say it. So one theory is that with like the trail cams, why it's blurry is that they're running by, or why, or like, if they're an animal, and animals have different senses. They pick up on different vibes, different sounds, different hummings that we don't hear. So that could explain why, as they're coming up, they might pick up, sense a humming, sense something that's not right, something that feels weird, and send them in the other direction, or send them running, so you get the blurry photo. As far as somebody taking the photo, I have to believe that, as much as everybody thinks, oh, well, I'm so tough, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. If you see something like that, I mean, you're gonna get excited, you're gonna be shaking. There's a lot that's going to be happening there, and I think that's some of it. As far as every picture being blurry or this or that very well could be. It could be, the direction saying, okay, maybe individuals are right by saying that, hey, they're more paranormal. Yeah. It's kind of hard to say, because, until we actually have, like a cryptid, like we're holding on to the cryptid in front of us, and we can actually, I don't think we're really ever going to have an answer to the questions. Again, there's a lot of theories of why this happens. One of the questions I get, well, how come, nowadays, we've got, drones, we've got all this and that. We can't seem to get a clear picture. But 1967, Bob Gimlin gets this perfect video. you know, I don't know, it's, things are, I don't know. You would think nowadays we would get a better picture and a better video than back then. But at the same time, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Like the video quality is better than it originally was because a lot of people did stuff to it. So that's one of the reasons why the quality is so good. It was done on older film, older cameras, but at that time it was a good camera. So I guess if you come along and you see a creature that doesn't see you yet, then maybe you can start getting a video like that. My understanding is that when individuals are getting these pictures, they've noticed it after it's already noticed them. And that's the only explanation that I could say in regards to like the Gimlin footage compared to like nowadays. And again, nowadays, I mean, some people say, because some people don't get pictures, and they say, well, how come you didn't take a picture? You got a phone right there. And I believe the individuals that tell me I was so scared I couldn't move. I think that's the, it's that really brings validity to what they're actually saying. So
yeah, I get that. I mean, myself and my brother had a really up close UFO experience several years ago now, and it wasn't until about 4 hours later, lying in bed, I thought, why didn't I take a picture? And my phone was there. We'd stopped the car. There was every reason why I should have taken a picture, but it wasn't until later that I realised. So I can massively understand what you're saying there. You talk about theories there, and I wasn't aware that it's such a bad word in your field. I mean, for me, a theory is what pushes the envelope of the investigative part, the research. If it's not a theory, then I guess it's a fact, and nobody can claim to know the full picture of whether we're talking about ghosts or crypts.
Right.
It can't. Surely you need theories. I mean, is it that bad that people look down on people that theorize?
Yeah, I'll say that there's definitely more groups of people than anything, because pretty much what you're telling them. Okay, so they saw a creature standing in front of them. They know it exists, and then you drop the word theory, you're calling them a liar.
Yeah.
And I tell people, look, that was your experience. I don't know what you experienced. And, as of right now, I mean, there's enough evidence to suggest that there's something out there. We all know that. That's why we look. That's why we do what we do. So we know that there's something out there. So nobody's calling you a liar, but we're just saying, okay, that is a theory. Again, I know individuals that are 100% hardcore that, Bigfoot Sasquatch is 100% paranormal, without a doubt, 100%. And then I say, yeah, that's a theory. It's one of the theories. And then they blow up. They're upset about that because, again, they take it as like you're calling them a liar. And it's like, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just saying that right now, science has not proven this to actually 100% exist. So we do have a theory that they exist. And theory, again, is not a bad word, because if it wasn't for theory and it wasn't for that, a lot of people wouldn't even know how to even communicate about this subject. And they wouldn't even know where to even start looking. And, and I tell people too, look, all my research and everything that I do, like, I don't really look at anything in the last 60, 70 years. Like, I go way back. I go to straight right to the Native Americans. Yep. They're the reasons we know about, these cryptids. They're the reasons we know about, all these different legends and lore. It came from them. They claim, that they lived, together. Some tribes claimed that Bigfoots came in and stole their children and their wives and would mate with them, and that's how the population continued to go. And so again, I go back then because nowadays, like for me, I got books to sell, so I do have an agenda. Native Americans, they had nothing. They had nothing to gain by saying, hey, Bigfoot exists. They had nothing to gain. So I ultimately give them the total complete respect that they deserve when it comes to this subject. So when somebody's saying, well, this meter did this meter did that, blah, 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 I said, well, the Native Americans said, And and again, those, so I follow along that path because again, I'm the type of guy where it's like, if I do want an answer, I don't want to go to somebody who just wants to have an answer. I want to go to somebody who wants to have the right answer. And believe it or not, I mean, as well as I do that there's people out there that just want to have an answer and run with it, whether it's right or wrong. So it's 10% correct, so I'm going to roll with it. Like,
I think the theories are fantastic. We need theories.
Yes.
The downside to that is when people begin to make the evidence fit their theory, as opposed to making, do you know what I mean? They kind of reverse it and now have a theory and it's in stone, and it doesn't matter what happens. They will ignore evidence if it goes against their theory, or they will try and bend it to fit into their. And I think that's wrong. I think your theory has to be fluid. We've got a really good point in the comment section. I've noticed someone's put an angry face, an angry reaction. I don't know who we've upset or how we've upset, but sorry. Maybe we're talking about theories has upset somebody. So someone's put, the government, science and the government don't want to prove these things exist. They already know. That's an interesting point. Do you find that, do you think that, is there a theory that the government are covering something up? And if they are, why?
I do, to be honest with you. I know some individuals that have been in the military, and they've been briefed on certain things. And there's a group that I know that lives down south, and they went out into this one area, and they were camping out there, and they were out there doing an expedition, and they ended up having the military ended up showing up, and this was just last year. The military ended up showing up, and they went over and they questioned them, and they said, what are you doing out here? So they were honest. They're like, this is what we're doing. And they said, okay, all right. And then they, I don't know, maybe 100 yards away, the military, the guards set up camp about 100 yards away from them. There's a theory. We have a theory of why they did it. We don't 100% know, but I definitely, I can't. I mean, we've got all this special equipment, where we can look at another country and we can see an ant walking across a table. Okay, so with so many credible people, saying that these do exist because I saw them. As far as I'm concerned, the government, the military, they all know about it. I mean, just last year, they released that there is such a thing as UFOs. But all this time, no. So I think it's just a matter of time where I think they're going to kind of come out with things from time to time to kind of make it, so when it does come out to exist, it's not such a uproar, maybe. But in along with theories and conspiracies, what I thought was funny last year around this time was they admitted the existence of UFOs, and then all of a sudden Corona's there. So, I'm like, okay, so do these intermingle? Is this an extraterrestrial virus that we now have to fight because all of a sudden the world turns upside down and everybody, all the governments are talking about this and that, and then all of a sudden, again, it's upside down. This can't be because they wanted to get President Trump out of office. There's got to be something bigger. There's got to be something bigger here. So again, that's a theory. It's not a fact. But they intermingle all at the same time. Wow, what's going on? There's UFOs now. We've got the most deadliest virus in the world.
Well, I think what they've done is, to touch on what you spoke of there, is they've chosen a very optimal time to release the UFO information, because no one's looking there anymore. Everyone's focused on surviving the pandemic or whatever it is, and they're more worried about are we going to keep our jobs? Are we going to survive? Is my nan going to die? They're all interested in that, rightly so. And no one's really looking at UFOs, so they just drip feed it slowly into the mainstream. Actually UFOs exist, and I don't think that it's linked Corona and UFOs. I just think they've gone, we'll release it now, and kind of they can never say that we don't tell them anything. But no one really cares. No one really cares anymore. No one's paying any attention. And I think that would be the same with cryptids. If ever they did release proper footage, if the government ever told people, look, there is such a thing as a Bigfoot, and we have been protecting sea monsters and Mothman and all this stuff, and we have been experimenting on chupacabras and all this stuff. Do you think people would still say no, don't believe it?
No, I think I think at that point in time, if we can put an actual name to it and come up with something that is now in actual, like, not researcher books, but actual science books. And I think it would definitely, at that point in time, people would definitely be like, oh, okay, because you've got the people again that don't believe at all 100% and don't care and don't even think about it or put any time into it. So to change their minds after, the reason they don't believe in it is because there isn't anything in any books. There isn't any way to actually back it up. So once it's in there, I think it would just become as common as like the humpback whale after a while. Maybe not in our generation, but down the road, like my grandchildren's grandchildren might, be like, yeah, Bigfoot, yeah.
In the zoo, maybe. Go to see Bigfoot in the zoo. You could be
yeah. And that's the biggest thing, that worries me and scares me is, with capturing one or something like that, what we would, what we do in the name of science, worries me. So
and you talk of capturing one. Now, something that's interested me is, it's a question, and I know the answer to this because I've spoken to people in the field before, but I'd be interested in your take. Why do we never come across a body? What people have taken photos of creatures that is it the Montauk monster that washed up on the shore, and people have taken photos of supposedly dead Bigfoots, but they've always been proven to be false.
Right.
Why don't people come across bodies?
I mean, I've heard this. I mean, I've heard multiple things. Like one, they're like, well, when's the last time you came through the woods and you saw a dead deer? Well, many times. But, as far as like a dead bear, no, never seen anything like that. A lot of individuals will say, well, the forest eats them up really quick, the bones and everything. But then I have to question, okay, well, how come somebody can dump a human body in the woods? 5 years later, a hunter finds it and the bones aren't gone. So I got a lot of questions about that. Why would a Sasquatch body, those bones not be found as well? Again, if the animals are eating them all, why wouldn't they do that with a human bone? So I don't know if there's something different in the bones. I don't know. Another thing is, a lot of individuals say that that Sasquatch mourn their dead like we do, and then they bury them. Somebody said that they're, because they inbreed. Somebody said that they could be cannibalistic, and then they eat their dead. I don't know, man. I'll tell you, it is crazy to think that something like that could exist, but then you never find anything like that. And again, so many people say, well, it's because the forest animals eat them all up. But then again, I gotta ask myself, how can a human body be dumped, and then 5 years later, hunter comes across the bones? So I don't know. It's and that's the other thing you'll learn about me is I'm not afraid to say I don't know.
Yeah, and that's right, because it's only by saying that you don't know, that's how you learn. Again, if you assume you know everything, then there's no point in us even talking because, there's nothing to talk about, really. I think that another possibility, and I know this is going to lean into your 5 or 10% that you aren't, but the multidimensional theory, we're back to theories. A lot of people talk about how a lot of Bigfoot sightings in particular occur around the same time and location as UFO sightings, and they tend to draw parallels between the two. Or I've heard of witnesses that have claimed that Bigfoot walked behind a tree but didn't come out the other side. And I have my own theories for this. But I know you said you don't really lean towards the multidimensional, but that, I guess, could explain the no bodies, if they don't actually exist within this frequency.
Yeah. And individuals also will say, why they believe it's interdimensional. It's like they're walking along, they're following the footsteps, and all of a sudden they don't exist anymore. They just vanish. So I mean, they very well could be interdimensional. Again, it's tough because like for instance, when you say interdimensional, a lot of people will say interdimensional and paranormal, and they put it in the same bucket. And I know people that have interdimensional, and then they've got paranormal in two different buckets. So it really depends on who you're talking to. Like for instance, I had an individual. This is their ghosts, their paranormal, and I understand, like ghosts and paranormal, can move things. They can sit on beds and you can see the blanket move. But I've never heard of a ghost that can leave like a footprint that's that deep and solid ground. So so again, it makes me wonder. So if I had to say anything, I would lead, interdimensional. I kind of put interdimensional and kind of UFOs kind of in the same boat. The reason I do that is because if you think about it, when we always think about like aliens and different things like that, we always think of like Star Trek. We think like beam me up, this and that. So, well, maybe it went over there and it's escaping and it beams up. I mean, it's a theory, but it's as crazy as any of them, I guess. But interdimensionally, yeah. I mean, going through different doors and different areas of the forest has gateways to other parts in the country. I've heard other dimensions, other planets. It very, very well could, because I mean, there are people that have been like, it was there and then it was gone.
Yeah. Of all the I guess the monsters and the cryptids that we talk about, and there are so many, you could almost have like a thesaurus on them. That we spoke about the Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, the Montauk Monster, the Dogman, Mothman, Loch Ness Monster, all of these. What is the weirdest one you've ever come across? The weirdest, probably most imaginative creature you've ever come across?
I would probably say the Wendigo.
Okay.
Not familiar with the Wendigo?
No, that's a new one for me.
Oh yeah. It's there's a couple different theories behind it, but it's a cannibalistic spirit, kind of like witch. That some say that it was a child that was born and it was the mother was damned. And they say that like some say they reproduce by creating other Wendigos by taking over somebody's body and using up the energy, and then going on to the next one. So it's kind of it's one of those ones that it's spirit, but then it goes flesh and blood by taking over body, using up the energy. So yeah, the Wendigo, if it's creepy, it's very, I'd have to say that it's probably one of the most terrifying ones. And that with like, it's more of a legend, but there's a legend of the Boo Hags, which is they're kind of like witches, kind of like a Wendigo, but different, where they actually come in windows at night. And I don't know what they mean when they say this, but they say that they ride the man and then drain his soul out of him. And so yeah, but yeah, they're supposedly just spirit, but apparently they when they get that energy, a portion of them can actually turn into flesh and blood. So, but so Boo Hags and the Wendigo are definitely some messed up individuals.
Yeah, and as wild as they sound, and to some people, even just talking about a simple Bigfoot is crazy. But do you think there has to be an element of something in them? These folklore stories that you talk about in your book, for example, and the Native Americans that all talk about these things, as you say, they would have nothing to gain by talking about it. There must be a grain of truth to these creatures, to these.
There always is. There always is.
Yeah.
There's always something there. There always is some truth that got it going. Unless there was just, a grandpa that was a real good storyteller and started something once and then it just went.
Yeah.
But other than that, 9 times out of 10, there's always a grain of truth, that started something. It's usually the BS that kind of follows sometimes that can kind of throw it off course. But everything, that I've kind of researched, there's always been kind of like a grain of truth. There was something that was there. For instance, you go back hundreds of years, maybe the Sasquatch was a human being that had hypotrichosis, which is where they just grow hair all over their bodies. Wait, did I say that right? Hypertrichosis. Yeah, I believe so. Where the body just continuously grows hair, and if you look like that and you were like that back then, I mean, you're automatically an outcast. So what are you going to be doing? Running around in the woods? You're going to be stealing food.
Yeah.
So that could actually be where the legend started. So who knows? Hypertrichosis.
Someone on the comment section could look at that, see if they've got
I'm having one of those moments, once you hit 40, you start questioning everything you say.
I guess really because as someone who comes from England, we have our kind of, our stories and our history, of course, a long history, but we don't tend to have anything in the realms of what America tends to have, or even some other, like the Mongolian death worm or something that's supposedly we don't. I could be wrong here, but in my opinion, we don't have anything like that. People actually argue in the UK as to whether there are wild pumas and wild lions out there, and it's not that hard to believe, in my opinion, because people have them as pets and let them go as they get too big. But people actually can't come to terms with the fact that could be possible. So I'm not sure how they would ever come to terms with the possibility of a spirit coming through the window at night and sucking the soul out of a man. So do you find that when you're talking to people that don't believe, do you get frustrated that they can't quite see the angles that you see when you're approaching this kind of research?
No, not at all. Not at all, because it's the frustrating part for me is, again, wanting to know, wanting to know. So I get frustrated more, I'd say, maybe possibly with the subject. But somebody asking questions and not grasping it, because I can't 100% grasp it. If I could 100% grasp it, I don't know. It just, for me, I just can't. So no, the only time I get upset or I get agitated is when one individual is attacking another individual. Because unfortunately there are individuals out there that are what they would call themselves experts.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's experts in any of this. I do believe that there's professionals. There are professionals that have been studying it for a long time, doing a lot of things, that there are professionals. But I don't believe that there's an expert out there, because there's no accountability. There really isn't. For instance, I always use this example. If somebody said to me, black bears during the summer turn their skin inside out to stay cool, well, I can go down to my local library. I can read up on that and say, okay, no, that's false. Yeah. Right now, I can't do that with this other stuff, because it's all opinions. In the books that you read, you got to be careful too, because not everybody fact checks even the things that are actual fact that we know. So it's tough. So I don't really get hung up with any of that. The only thing that really agitates me, again, is when somebody is like, I've been doing this for 30 years, I'm an expert. It's like, okay, well, you're an expert at not finding Bigfoot for 30 years. I only say that, and I say that in a way as in, like, okay, that person has to literally attack me, type of thing. But I've had people do that. They're just like, well, you're just a kid, this and that, blah, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, I'm 46. I don't think I'm a kid. I think I've been doing this a while. So maybe I age well, and you don't realize that. But it's like, I'm not knocking you in your research, and but again, if it don't, there's no experts. There are people that are professionals. They go after this, and I mean, you've got your Ken Gerhards, you've got your Lauren Colemans, all these cryptozoologists that you're just professionals. They've done the work, they've done the studies, they've come up with no answers, and they've admitted that. Again, that's a professional. I don't believe we'll be able to become an expert in something until we 100% know we got it in front of us. We can study it and say, yes, these are the facts right here.
Yeah, and we talk about kind of people that get on top of other people about what they believe and what they've seen. From a personal perspective, this is something you've obviously put a lot of time into. As you say, you're quite long in the tooth when it comes to your own research. Have you ever seen anything yourself? What's the closest you've ever come to? And I'm not just talking Bigfoot here. I'm talking kind of anything paranormal, anything weird. What do you have any stories there?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely had, weird experiences. Like, not this past summer, but the summer before, we were out on a Sasquatch expedition, and they do this thing called tree knocks. They say it's a form of
Yeah.
communication. I can't explain it, but the founder of our group, Gary, he radioed us. I was with another investigator, researcher. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to do a tree knock, in a few seconds." So we said, okay. We heard him do his, and we were probably, I don't know, we were a few hundred yards away, maybe, and he was at base camp when he did it, and the fire was there, so we could actually see him in the distance. So we heard it, and then we just sat there, and probably like 45 seconds later, we heard a knockback. We can't explain it. We could see where Gary was. We could see that he didn't do it. There weren't. It was probably maybe 1 a.m. in the morning. It was dark out. It was dead of summer. There was no wind, so it wasn't like there was a little bit of wind making the trees kind of crack, and different things like that. So we can't explain that. We have seen, weird lights, in the forest that shouldn't be there. There's no reason for them to be there. And upon, investigation, there's nothing there. I mean, you'd think, okay, well, swamp gases, different things can create this and that. Well, there's nothing like that there. There was no hikers. There wasn't anything. If it was a hiker, obviously, with a flashlight, it would have been moving, but it's just staying right there. So, I've had, little weird experiences that I can't personally debunk, as well as, hearing, something, kind of following you in the woods. Doesn't mean it was a Bigfoot. It could have been any type of predator that was watching me, making sure that I wasn't coming near, a baby or something like that. But I again, had strange, experiences, but I haven't witnessed like any type of like bipedal,
Yep.
anything. Just heard maybe walking in the distance, which sounded upright, sounded two-step, not like on all fours, different things like that. But I'm not one of the lucky ones so far, if you will.
No, and when you look into these kind of creatures, and it's worldwide, every culture, every civilization has their own stories to tell. Do you find correlations around the world? Do different civilizations, different cultures have their own version of a Bigfoot, or do they have their own version of a Dogman or
Mhm.
of Mothman? Is that true to say?
Yeah, it is. It is. And, to be honest with you, um, they all very much sound alike. There's differences. There's definitely differences. But they sound alike, in some areas. They're, like a Sasquatch is, could be 4 or 5 feet tall. And in other areas, they're talking 10 to 12 feet tall, in other countries, in the US, I mean, the average is, between 7 and 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
So, there's definitely differences, but yet the characteristics and the visuals for the most part are the same. But there are differences depending on which country you're talking about.
Yeah, and of course we need to come back to why we're doing this, which is for CALM, the Campaign Against Living Miserably. This has really been brought on by lockdowns. Now, from a paranormal perspective, people have found that lockdowns has increased paranormal activity because people are spending more times in their homes. So they're hearing and seeing things they wouldn't normally be there to hear or see. Or maybe the ghosts have just had enough of them being there for as long as they are and they're not getting a break. Would you find that it's having the complete opposite effect when it comes to cryptids? Because that's something that people have to be outside for. They have to be out in the woods. They have to be out in civilization. And that's something that as a species we've stopped doing for the time being. Has that seen a knock-on effect in minimizing the cases that you're getting?
I'd say yes to a degree, because there's more people in the woods now, because they can't go to malls, they can't go out to eat, they can't do anything, so they're looking for things to do. So you've got people that have never hiked ever in their life, they're now going out into the woods. So you would think that there would be more sightings because more people, but I think the more people is the more that you drive whatever it is into hiding, because
Yeah.
people aren't seeing more deer, people aren't seeing anything like that. I think they're just driving animals into into hiding and driving them away. So I think it's definitely had the opposite effect when it comes to any type of sighting.
Yeah, and I just want to come back to talking about the kind of the cultural thing around the world and how they're all similar. I find that interesting because if you were to go back even just a couple of 100 years, there was no real way of communicating between cultures. And I often
Right.
say this when it comes to things such as building, pyramids and obelisks that are similar all around the world. It's not like people could have just WhatsApped their friend the other side of the world and said, "Look what I've just built. I think you should build one as well." Or
Yeah.
let's spread a story that there's a big hairy man that lives amongst us. People couldn't do that in that time. So to go back to ancient cultures and have sightings that are so similar around the world, surely that means there is a grain of truth to it.
Right, absolutely. And when you talk about going back, let's just go back pre-internet.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, it's just, or just go back to the days of MySpace. You know,
Yeah.
unless you knew that person, you never, you would never associate with them. I mean, on Facebook, I mean, I've got all my virtual friends. I mean, I know 4 people on Facebook, like actually know them. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, for this all to be passed down and to have different stories all across the world. Yeah, I mean, there has to be it could be the smallest thing, but there has to be some truth to it to get it to where it is today, because there's no other reason for it to be where it is today.
Yeah, we've got about 8 minutes or so left. But I'm when I talk about the paranormal and I give presentations and that, I always end with the future. What's the future of the paranormal? The future of the evidence. Now, for something like yourself and a field that you're involved in, every time someone sees a picture or a grainy video, people are quick to jump to the conclusion of it's CGI, it's fake, it's photoshopped, it's not real, it's a man in a suit. Do you fear for the future of evidence? Because as things progress, technology, we can take better pictures, but it also means that we can falsify pictures more. It means we can use Photoshop better. Do you think? Are we ever going to be able to trust another piece of evidence again?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because that's the thing. I mean, I could take a picture right now and I could just pull up a program and just do something to it online and then post it. So yeah, you're gonna have that. It's going to make it's already made it more difficult. Because you've got, I mean, there's a lot of these groups, cryptid groups, Bigfoot groups, where people join them just to put up fake pictures and just to troll through them. So we already know that there's a lot of people that have a lot of time on their hands. But yeah, I think I think it's only going to get worse, and that's why I always stay at the 95%. Because if I stay at the 95%, it gives me that 5% to continue thinking for myself. And maybe changing my mind. And a lot of individuals say, there's a line drawn. You got to pick a side. And it's like, all right, well, this is where I am right now. I'll stand right here. But that doesn't mean I'm against this side over here, because you know what? 2 years from now, I may be standing on this side. I have no problem, following the evidence. And that's the thing, is I'm going to follow the evidence. I'm going to follow whatever's there that seems legitimate, that can be, somebody can kind of back up, and just to have, random, so this video of, people at Christmas time with their video camera. Oh, look, I see a big. Okay, you watch that video. You can tell it's CG. You can see that something was put in there. It's just like, but again, that's the difference between somebody who wants to believe and wants to know. Because somebody who wants to believe is going to jump all over that. Somebody who wants to know is going to look at it and go, "Oh, wait a minute, hold up a second." And
So, and what I've found is that I've started to go more down a personal route now. So with equipment and stuff, I've started to think, what have I heard? What have I seen personally? Without capturing evidence, because there's always going to be someone that rubbishes it. There's always going to be someone that says, "No, it's not true." And I think now, if I go to bed on an evening after being on an investigation and I know I've seen something, that's enough for me now, because I don't want to be ridiculed and all that stuff. And if you do get a piece of evidence, great. Do you think that that's the way that it's going to go? sitting in the woods and just having these personal experiences, the knocks that you heard, the things that you can't explain, is that enough for you?
It is. I don't have to, like, my whole mission, focus, goal is really, you know, personal, you know, just to get out there and again, an experience. You know, when we're out in the woods too, like, you know, there's a lot of things that people do that's because it's, you know, all this has been commercialized,
Yeah.
you know, 100% commercialized. So, we'll do we'll do little things here and there, but a lot of the time we'll just go out, we'll just sit there and just listen.
Yeah.
We'll just sit there and listen, and we'll leave the Hollywood aside and just go out there and listen. And again, you know, it's all about the personal experience. For me, I don't have to, like, so many times we go out, guess what? We come back with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
To me, that's a personal experience. I went out and there was nothing, so you've got to consider that a personal experience, I guess, as well as maybe like a tree knock, because it kind of helps balance it out. It makes something that's legitimate seem more legitimate, because you know what? Okay, well, it's not happening now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think as it goes on, I think it's going to get scarier in a sense, as in it's mainstream, it's trendy, it's cool now. Like the show Finding Bigfoot, in my opinion, I love the show. It made going out in the woods, doing, searching for Bigfoot, mainstream. It made it popular, like Expedition Bigfoot is continuing it, making it popular, which is a good thing, because people are recognizing what individuals are doing. But at the same time, now everybody's starting a group. They've got no understanding. They're like, hey, this looks like it'd be cool. They get matching T-shirts, come up with a team name, and then then they're going out in the woods and they don't know what they're doing. They're doing a tree knock, this and that. Nobody knows how to even survive in the woods. And that's the other thing with the group that I joined. That's the other reason I joined it, is Gary's a survivalist. Like, you go on a trail, you're on the trail for about 5 steps, and then he bushwhacks. You're following him through. So he teaches survival training and all this and that. And that's the other thing is, guys, when you're going out in the woods, please know where you're going. Let somebody know where you're going to be. Don't depend on your cell phone, because once you get out there, those signals drop. Make sure you got somebody there that teaches you, that can mentor you and help you understand the woods and what you need to do if you get lost, you get hurt, or whatever it is. Please definitely just make sure there's somebody in your group that has that. If you don't have anybody, become that person.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a minute left or so now, and I always hand over to the guest to have the last word, really. So, is there anything you'd like to say? Where can people reach you if they'd like to? Where can they buy your book? You have a website. Do you want to just tell people about that?
Sure. Yeah, my website is kwirish.com. You can find me on Facebook, Kenney W. Irish. You can find me under the Cryptopunkologist. My book, Folklore Frankensteins, is actually out of print right now for the time being. I've actually switched publishers. I just signed with Beyond the Fray Publishing. So it's a second edition that's going to be coming out. You'll be able to get that on Amazon through the publisher. You'll be able to get it through me in select stores, across the across the country. And but my other book, Stanley Riker and the Bigfoot Runaround, it's a young reader's chapter book that is still available through the previous publisher I was with, Dark Moon Press. So definitely jump on there, grab that. That's for ages 6 to 9, and that's it. Just be safe, have fun, and call, check on your friends, make sure everybody's all right, everybody's being taken care of, and nobody's suffering in silence.
Brilliant. I'd just like to thank you very much for coming onto the show. Yeah. Hopefully you've enjoyed yourself. Hopefully to everybody that's watching, you've enjoyed this. Like I said, it is a bit different. It doesn't go down the paranormal route, although we did touch on that a little bit for you guys. As always,
I'm not a paranormal guy. Like, I run from that.
No, but I do think it's good to talk about stuff like that, because I do believe there is a linkage there as well. But yeah, so to everyone watching, thank you very much for tuning in. Do hit the Just Giving link and give charitably towards this CALM, campaign against living miserably. It's not a very good thing for people to be going through at the moment, and we need to help them as best as we can. Finally, Kenny, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a privilege to talk to you, to meet you, and we'll talk again soon, no doubt. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.